Dave, another home game coming up this weekend. You must feel in a pretty good place considering where you're at the minute.
Yeah, I think after the tough away game at Huddersfield, everybody would have seen us playing 2 home games against teams not right at the top of the table as opportunities, which we do, but I think they're the biggest challenges. So we overcame one of them last weekend, and we face another tough task to do that this weekend. But as with every game, never mind home game, we'll go into it optimistic and hoping to perform and get another 3 points.
When you look at the league table right now, you're in the playoffs, you're in touching distance at the top of the league as well. Does it feel like a much more open division this year in terms of who can win it without like a Birmingham, say?
I don't know. That's difficult to say. I suppose you look at last year. Quite obviously, Birmingham were going to be the favourites, and they started in a manner that meant that they were always at the top of the table. Again, you look at right at the top this year, I don't think anyone would have put Stevenage where they are. Alex done a brilliant job and they've started really, really well. And they'll hope to continue that, but they're not one of the biggest back teams in the division, if you like. So I don't see, I might be proven wrong, but I don't see them doing what Birmingham did with the resources that they had. So I suppose it's potentially more open, but I think if you look at what last year's division was, right at the start of it, I said that there's probably 15 teams or so that would back themselves to get into the in and around the playoffs or want to be competing around the playoffs. I think that's, if anything, that number's probably increased this year. So maybe you don't have that giant of a team in terms of the investment that Birmingham were making and their ambition being really on show. Some would say that might be the case with Luton coming down, all the teams that get relegated, but not as prominently. So that maybe it does leave it a little bit more open. But I still think the competition's as deep as what it was last year.
Looking back to last week, you really had to obviously dig in at the end of the game. You touched on game management needing to be better in those kind of situations. What's the key to that? Is it about looking after the ball more, or being braver, staying out of the pitch?
All those things. I think you'll look again. Sometimes it's difficult to control because players will get a feeling on a pitch and go into certain moments, and you've got to deal with the opposition as well. If you look back at the weekend before, we played with 10 men against Huddersfield for a large part of the game and remained more of a threat going forward. We had virtually the same personnel on the pitch last weekend against with 11 men against Blackpool, and just didn't do it enough in my eyes going the other way, whether that's ball retention, whether that's opportunities that you get to put the ball in behind, whether that's clearances and where they have to go on the pitch. But with all that in mind, although we got a little bit deeper, what we did do is defended the box really well. And apart from a corner where they have a header, which just because of the way that we mark from corners, there are going to be spare players. That's probably a header that we'd have given up with the way that we want to defend. We have to accept that some things are going to happen from corners, and if someone gets a free header who isn't one of their stronger headers around the penalty spot and scores from there, that's probably a consequence of us going, that's how we're going to defend from them. So I think we defended well in those moments. Obviously, I think from my perspective, you sort of forget a little bit around, you move on from games quicker, if you like. But then when you reflect afterwards, and we've spoken in the media afterwards, our last 2 home games have been 2 1-1 draws. Cardiff, where we dominated the game. Reading, where we dominated the game and didn't go and win it. So probably 6,000 of our fans have got that fresh in their heads. The last games they've been to, having not travelled away from home, have been those games. So 1-0 up against another team probably should be more in front than what we were based on certainly our first half performance. And it being, deja vu, the same sort of happening. What we've done in the last couple of weeks is not allow that to happen, and we have to move on from that. Like I say, from that narrative. We're in a good place, and looking forward.
We've seen some really good stuff in periods of games so far this season. Do you feel like we're close to that full 90-minute performance and producing that on a consistent basis?
I'm not sure it's about full 90-minute performance, because I don't think that we're ever going to be in a position where we have a divine right to dominate a game for 90 minutes. The teams are going to have spells against you, and if you're in front and the game's close, teams, managers, coaches will make changes in order to try and change the momentum of that game, and they'll be a little bit more adventurous in what they're trying to do. That's mean that you're going to be on the back foot at times. So I'll never sort of look at ours and go, what a full 90-minute performance means we have the ball for the full 90 minutes and we don't have any danger to our goal. That'd be blue sky thinking, but that's never really going to happen. There's going to be times when you have to defend, and a full 90-minute performance might be that you produce some really good stuff. You put yourself in a position where you've got chances, you've taken those chances, and then you may have to defend and you keep a clean sheet. I think the bit for us is that what we've got to do better is when we're playing well, or we're in the ascendancy, if you like, is go and be clinical and be more efficient with the chances that we take. Because the two previous games to last weekend, if we're sat 2 or 3-0 up against Reading and Cardiff, and then all of a sudden they have a spell at the end of the game, and we concede a goal or we don't concede a goal, then it'll be deemed as a really, really good performance. Then performances have been tarnished a little bit by the fact that we've conceded late on through either a mistake or, as with the Reading, three bits of quality. Let's be, their goal's a good goal. Although we'll look at things we can do about it, it's a really, really good goal. So I don't think it's about a full 90-minute performance. I think it's about being more clinical when we're on top and when we have the chances to score.
2 players back this weekend. Talk about them first. Ben obviously got a goal on Tuesday night. Before the international break, he had probably his first consistent run in the starting 11. Did a lot of good stuff, got in some good goal scoring areas. Does it feel like he maybe just needs one to fly in off his knee and get him off and running for the season?
Yeah, I don't think because of the way Ben is, I don't think he's ever going to score one that flies in off his knee. I think he's a really, really composed finisher. And probably if you put together the good chances that he's had over the recent games, you'd lose money on whether you back him to score or not because of what we see day on day. So I don't think he's the type that's going to get the goal that you mentioned, but I think he'll get opportunities, and he is a calm finisher. And what it won't do, it won't fluster him, so he won't all of a sudden start finishing in a different way and smashing balls rather than finding corners. That's how he goes about his stuff. That's what's got him the goals for someone such a young age, at the level that he has. It's what got him the goals in our team in a bit part last year, if you like, and affecting us from the bench. And now he's been more consistent in the role that he's been doing within the team. Listen, he'll get goals. I have absolutely no doubt about that. But he's added lots more than that to our team in the position that he's played. So, yeah, good for him to go away. I think at the level he's playing at, international level, is lower than where we are, and will always get his goals, and I don't think that'll be any different here.
Just been chatting to Tyler, who's obviously back from suspension. When you take that red card away from it, what have you made of the way he's started his second spell here, particularly playing in a newish position, I suppose, at right wing back?
Yeah, fragmented would be probably the best way to describe it. Obviously, with him going back in pre-season back to Everton, coming back in, we then built sort of minutes up for him. So 60 minutes, 70 minutes. We then get to 80 minutes. He obviously has the setback with his ankle and missed a game as a consequence of that. Comes back, plays a game, then gets sent off and gets a suspension on the back of that, so misses a game. So it's been a little bit up and down. In terms of the position that he plays in, I think the positive for us with Tyler was that he can play in lots of positions. I think he's naturally a midfield player. Ideally, I think Everton see him as the potential to be a centre-back. I think he's loads to work to do to be a centre-back. I think the one thing that playing the position we are playing him in at the minute, or played before his suspension, was that he's allowed to use his physicality, and his physicality is a huge strength of his. Whereas maybe in other positions that's restricted. So is he going to be the type of right wing back that is firing balls in and crossing balls with quality. No, probably not. That's not him. That's not his strength. But I think around his overall game, they're all things that he can work upon and ultimately go and play in whatever position he wants to play. Really, I can have opinions about that and thoughts about that about how he might affect our team. But ultimately, at the moment, he's our player. He's a player on loan, and he'll have his own thoughts around where he sees himself in the short term, medium term, long term in terms of on the pitch.
Onto the players being out, the big one, of course, is Brad Hills, who limped off last week. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, ankle, so a deltoid on the inside of his ankle. I say not as bad as we feared. It looked a bad one, just in terms of how Brad was presenting and his thoughts. Again, he's going to be out for a period. I'm not going to put a time scale on it. It's not going to be a couple of weeks, but it's not going to be months and months. So with ankles, the most important thing is, I suppose, getting them quiet as quickly as possible, getting the swelling out of them. He's walking around. He's in a boot, but in a boot just to protect, really. I think he'll have an injection either the end of this week or the start of next week. And hopefully we can get him back on the grass and start getting him moving. And it will be a little bit of a moving target in terms of how long he's out for and when he's back. But it could have been a lot worse.
Must be so frustrating though, because as you touched on last weekend, if the liner puts his flag up, then that incident doesn't happen. Do you get any feedback on why that rule is in place? Because without VAR, it feels pretty pointless.
Yeah, I don't know. And no, the answer is, in terms of getting feedback, is no. Listen, whether it's prepping officials for refereeing higher up, or I don't know, whether it's thinking that somewhere in the future we might get VAR or some type of VAR at League One level, I have no idea. The frustration is, like I say, that we're victims of losing a player on the back of a moment, and we're the ones that feel the consequence of that. I don't get it. I'll never get it. Hence why I said, for me, if you're offside, you're offside. I don't think that, from a defender's perspective, you can't not be interfering, because you're going to be causing me a problem by standing the wrong side of the line. If you're stood in there, then from a defender's perspective, I want at least some help to say they can't influence the play, and that's not how the game currently runs.
Any other updates in terms of injuries? I guess so. In Dodgson was the next one in line in terms of players coming back.
Yeah, not at the moment. Again, the consequence of the lads that have been out is the fact that they've been out too long. So you then have to go through a process of building up their load week on week, and that takes time. I'm sure if you ask Dodge, would he want to be involved this weekend, he'd say yes. But from a sports science side of things, that would be a huge risk. It wouldn't be a huge risk with the quad that he's been out with. It'd be a huge risk around a quad or a hamstring or something going, because his load hasn't been built up over weeks. And that'll be exactly the same when Teo becomes available, when R2 becomes available. So as much as we'll see them back outside and see them training, probably the most frustrating thing will be that they won't be ready to play or ready to be involved. But what we've got to try and do is, as I said in my programme notes, as I said at the back end of last week, is keep ticking off games. Another game for us a week down the line, and hopefully more points is a week closer to all them players coming back, which will undoubtedly make us stronger.
Looking at Exeter, I guess inconsistent is maybe a word you'd use, 16th at the minute, but picked up some really good wins against Blackpool, one at Lincoln a few weeks ago. And when you look at particularly the threat from wide areas, the threat of McGuinness up front, they do cause teams problems. Yeah,
they have a way of going about it in terms of what they do tactically, and at times can have possession of the ball. It's always been, I suppose, the top end of the pitch for them in terms of adding that finishing bit, because they play some really good stuff. What you do notice with all the games, they're all really close. So they have tightened up this year. I think, again, without knowing every single result they've had, pretty much every game's been a goal in it either way. So games have been close. So we know that that might be the pattern of the game tomorrow. We hope that we can produce what we've produced over the last 5 games and look like a Stockport County team, and hopefully create chances enough for us to win the game. We'll, as with every team, understand the threats that they have and how they can cause problems. I think like I say, the biggest thing for us is outside of maybe our 4 walls, is people will look at these last 2 games and go, oh, you've won at Huddersfield, then Blackpool at home, Exeter at home should be 6 points. It doesn't work like that. We've got to make sure that we're absolutely bang on it. And if we are, then we stand the chance of winning. If we're not, then anything can happen.
And obviously the return of Danny Andrew wasn't here for very long, just a 1-month contract, but I guess had a big impact in the short time he was here, particularly at a time where you were light on numbers. Yeah,
Danny's position and what happened after that was exactly what we thought would be the case. A situation that worked really, really well for both parties. On the back of that, we would like Danny to have stayed, but we were obviously understanding that he would potentially get offers from elsewhere, and the offer of a contract till the end of the season, granted quite a way away from here, was always going to be something that would be interesting for him. So he went with everyone's best wishes. Like I say, we're great to catch up with him. He'll do a really good job in several positions with really good experience, which is something that I know Gary will value really highly within their squad. So again, outside of tomorrow's game, we obviously wish him all the best, and it'd be good to see him.
Appreciate your time, Dave. Thank you.
Welcome. Cheers. Thank you.